What's up, everybody? Welcome to your module on data-driven instruction, whole student focused, DDI with equity. So my name is Brianna Silvio. You already know me. I'm the creator of this course. I am a veteran teacher, distinguished teacher, and data-driven instruction, it can have a really bad reputation. I've been in circles and with educators that feel like data-driven instruction is like a curse word that we should not be utilizing in the classroom because it has potentially harmful effects on students. And I really do believe that there is room at the table for both. I believe that there is room at the table for data-driven instruction from an equitable whole child standpoint, in addition to also being aware that by putting children and adults in boxes, we could be cutting off nutrition and circulation to their brain to make them feel like they are not good enough. And so we're going to start today with just this concept of what quick facts are DDI. So DDI, and DDI literally just stands for data-driven instruction. When it's done correctly, it is all student-centered. It has nothing to do with your worth as a teacher, and it has nothing to do with their worth as a student. But DDI should always be student-centered. If you're finding yourself stuck or trapped in that imposter syndrome or that comparison game where, let's say you are a teacher amongst many other teachers in the same content and the same grade level, right? Let's say I'm a middle school history teacher and I have 4 other people in my department. When we focus on data, we often are ranked best. And by best, I mean test scores. Let's not pretend like this is something that it's not, right? Especially if you are here in Texas or in a state that puts a lot of emphasis on standardized testing, or a country rather, because you could be watching this from anywhere. But you fall into that comparison trap as an educator, and our students are no different. So as long as you constantly root yourself into the fact that DDI is actually supposed to be all student-centered, it only works if it is consistent. If you track data here and track data there, they're never going to see progress or growth. So what then happens is they feel like garbage because they, got this score on their end of module exam. And then we haven't talked about anything until the next end of module exam. And then they feel like garbage again. DDI really only works if it's a consistent and small chunk of time and effort away from that school day. And then DDI teaches, when done correctly, students how to take ownership of their goals and of their progress. So if you are interested in those 3 things and you want to hear more about what that means, stay with me. This is the module for you. So with your program, you get access to all of my DDI plans. Now, of course, my plans are going to be from the posture of Texas standards. In Texas, we have the exam from 3rd grade all the way to 12th grade called the STAR test. At least that's what it's called right now. Does it have the potential to change? Absolutely, yes. But there's always some sort of standardized exam. And within that standardized exam, most of the time, your district, your state, your region, your country will have buckets of this is passing, this is not passing. Now, the great news is I've just developed the structure of the document. The document in your portal is fully editable. So where it says does not meet, approaches, meets, and masters, you just simply erase that. You have full permission to edit this document. You just simply erase that and drop in your buckets to what that cutoff point is for your grading system. So we first have a snapshot of our class periods with their buckets or bands. So we have 4 bands here in Texas. Does not meets, which means they are not at grade level. Approaches, which we consider passing here, is I'm approaching the grade level. Meets is I'm on grade level, and masters is I have mastered the grade level and ready to move on. That's how ours are broken up. You can also think of it like F, CD, CB, AB. That's kind of if you're used to letter grades, okay? So what I like to do is I like to begin by listing the students' names with their score. So you can see my example right there. Miss Silvio, I got a 48. I'm red because I'm in the does not meets category or the F category. I got a 48%. The cutoff is 48. So I did not make the cut. Now that means nothing about me. This is simply neutral. I should have probably prefaced it with, which you've kind of heard me say before, if you've gotten to this module, you probably watched the others, unless you're going out of order, in which doesn't matter to me. But data does not define who we are. We get to choose to let and allow data to drive us to the next best decision. In another portion of this module, you hear me have a data conversation with a student. That is live in real time. There is no editing, none. There is no editing. I put the real thing on there. And the reason is because I wanted you to hear how we set up the conversation around data analysis really has the potential to create a lot of safety for our students. And I argue we desperately need this as a human species. If as a woman, as a teenage girl, if somebody were to tell me that being a size 10 was okay, I would have loved my body a long time ago. We create emotions around data. The weight on a scale, the size of our clothes, the score that we get on a test, the rating that we receive. Numbers are neutral. We create the drama around those numbers. DDI has the potential for you to plant a seed in your students at a young age so that they stop making numbers mean something about themselves. You can be both. You can be a person that chooses to not allow a 48 to make me feel stupid while also saying, you know what? I think I can get 10 points better next time. I think I can. And this is how I'm going to do it. That's the conversation of DDI. And as an educator, you have that potential to plant that seed right now in children. If you're in elementary, fast forward 10 years from now. If you plant that seed of data does not define you, but it can drive you. Imagine when you are a teenager and you are going through something personally and you fail an exam and it's an important exam. I know I would have felt like an idiot. I know it would have made me cry. I would have felt stupid. I would have been embarrassed and ashamed and all of those things. And you know what? Embarrassment and shame and all of that mess, that doesn't help me get better. That helps me stay small. That helps that voice inside my head say, see, I told you you weren't good enough. See, she's always going to be smarter than you. You're never going to get into university. But had I had somebody tell me at the very beginning of my education, hey, I know that this is not what you wanted, but let's figure out how we can go get what you want using the information that this gave us. That's DDI. So we go into our brands, and this is more so just me as an educator wanting to see the snapshot of my class right away. Then we go into out of place kids. Once again, speaking from a Texas lens here, out of place simply means that all of our students in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade going up, they all have a state goal. So let's say, and it's an algorithm based. Let's say that I'm a 5th grader and on the 3rd grade math standardized exam, I got a 72. My goal in 4th grade might be a 76. My goal in 5th grade, and then let's say 4th grade comes, right? And I get an 84. Then I go to 5th grade. Now my goal in 5th grade might be to just maintain that 84. It's algorithm based. Now, if your state, your district doesn't provide this for you of student goals, I absolutely think that you should assign them a goal. Having a goal for the student in the content area really helps define what it means and where we are going. Without a goal, without thinking with the end in mind, we're kind of just shooting from the hip. We don't really have a vision. We don't really have a mission. We don't really have anything that we're actually going for. So if your district or your state doesn't provide that academic content goal, you assign one. And how do you assign one? You can do a pretest at the beginning of the year. You can do a pretest at the beginning of every single unit. And then based off of that score, say, okay, well, by the time we're done with this unit in 9 weeks, you got a 43 at the beginning. Let's say at the end, let's go ahead and shoot for a 64, knowing that you have 9 weeks to develop that skill set with that child. Okay. So then that's what out of place means. Out of place means a student that should be getting a 52, but is getting a 36. That's an out of place student. They are not hitting their goal. So the name of the student, what their goal actually is, whether it be state or what they actually got, so you can cross compare really quickly, and then the teacher feedback section. In my experience, knowing your students on a holistic level is key to getting them to where they need to be, not only academically, but also like not only academically, but also like holistically, like being a good person, being a good human. So teacher feedback. Let's say that Freya, I'm just going to use my own daughter's name. Let's say that Freya, her star goal, right, is her star goal is a 50. She got a 45. So she missed her goal by 5 percentage points. Then I go in and I think back to Freya's experience this term. And now I'm remembering, man, I remember when she came in that day, she was upset. Actually, was she actually crying? She was crying that day. Why was she crying that day? And you're going through this thought process in your head. And you're scribing this. You're scribing this to either A, give your administration, because a lot of administrators want DDI. They want to see that you know your kids, where they are, where they need to go, and the gaps to fill, or it's just simply for you. And you're scribing this. You have 90,000 students to take care of. Scribe it. I know you're brilliant. I know you are brilliant. You bought this course. You are a smart cookie, but you can't remember everything all the time. Scribe it, write it down. That 45 to 50 deficiency, that 5% deficiency, it might actually not have to do nothing with the content. It might have just been that she was really sad that day. And when she sat down to take that test, she didn't give not 2 craps about no math test because A, B, and C happened at home. The coach feedback is if your campus has some sort of administration or instructional support. If they do, allow your coach or your instructional interventionalist or your assistant principal or your principal or your school leadership or whomever. We all know that everybody likes to dig their hands in everything. Give them an opportunity to also write down feedback. And then when are we retesting? Or what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? On that next page is parent contact. Now I'm down in elementary. Elementary is my area of elementary and middle school is my area of expertise. I have touched high school a little bit, but it's not much. So parent contact. I work in a Title I environment. If you don't know what Title I environment is, it is low socioeconomic status, at risk, high risk. We have a lot of poverty. We have a lot of, our students go through way more than your traditional children should be going through. So I'm coming at you from a place of not having guardian or parent support like other more affluent districts might have. So I am coming at you from the posture of I'm in those weeds. So please do not hear me say this and be like, well, I can't, my parents don't care. My parents don't answer my phone calls. They don't answer my emails. They don't answer my text messages. Baby, welcome to the club. Okay. But it's not our business, just like I said in the Parent Academy portion, if you've gotten to the Parent Academy portion, it's not our business to pass judgment on what parents or guardians are or are not doing. It's our job to still deliver the message. Because the reality is, even if you have a roster of 100 students, if one parent says, how can I help? That's one more win that we have in our pocket, in our corner. So I explain what I'm doing with the parents. I texted all the parents to let them know their score and the next steps. And then I give a sample of what that message sounded like. Then we go into the supplemental support. Our district uses Our school rather uses a program, a supplemental program called IXL for math. So that's IXL units. You might have a different supplemental program. It might be something free like Khan Academy. It might be something free like, YouTube. Like, it doesn't have to be a paid for program. However, here's the key here. All of those out of place students, they're all struggling with a different type of content. If you are a reading teacher, you might have 4 students that are struggling with main idea. You might have 7 students that are struggling with inferencing skills. You might have 10 students that are struggling with poetry. You might have, do you kind of see what I'm saying? Like, it has to be specific and targeted. If you just tell everybody to work on the one thing, that individualized growth is not going to happen. This is where the equity comes into play. You're going to have to chunk your students and say, hey, you guys are really, really, really having a hard time with, remembering the Bill of Rights. And so I want you guys to work on this. And they are also getting a copy of this, which you're going to see here in a second. This is not something that you're just telling. You have this copy, this is your copy, and then students will also receive one. We'll look at that next. This chunk of students, hey, you guys are really struggling with the capitals of the states of the United States of America. So I want you guys to focus on this. And then there's an additional block for tutoring. If you feel like tutoring or extra supplemental support is needed to get them to where they need to be, that's where you communicate with that. All right. So after exams, teachers order the testing data by their achievement bands, whatever that might mean to you. Remember, this is my kind of F, and then this is like DC, this is CB, and this is AB, if I were to give it a grade level. I like to red highlight the kiddos not meeting their goal and green highlight the kiddos that are. So if you are goal-based, or if you want to become goal-based, green is I'm meeting my goal that either my state, my district, or my teacher has set for me, or that we have set together. Red is I'm not meeting it. So it's a snapshot. You can print this out, put it on a clipboard, and immediately have a small group right there in front of you. Then teachers analyze if the students are meeting their goal, their target, goal given by the state or by you. Then teachers internalize why they think this is happening. Look at the kiddos' workflows. I'm a math teacher, so I love to look at their work. Like my students know, like there is no math in my head, especially down in primary school. Like I need to see, how did you multiply? How did you divide? How did you subtract? How did you add? How did you use order of operations here? Because then you get to decide, is this computational or is it conceptual? Do they not know that 3 times 4 is 12? Or do they not know that this is an actual multiplication problem? Because that's 2 completely different pathways. Is there a consistent pattern of low mastery within a certain skill set so that you know how to communicate with the guardian and the student? Hey, it is clear to me that you seem to be struggling with long division. Does that feel right for you? Does that feel accurate? And they'll tell you. If they trust you, they'll tell you. Communicate with the families as needed and then differentiate as needed based on the student's drive. So let's go into standards analysis. The standards analysis with data-driven instruction. Most campuses and districts, they have platforms that you test on. Most of them do. A simple click traditionally organizes the data numerically. Now it's time to choose the reteach standards. So now after you've gone through and you analyzed individual student data, then it's time to say, okay, as a teacher, where do I need to go back and reteach? And like I said, a lot of us have platforms, a lot of us. All I had to do was click that little correct button and it tells me 75% of my students in 3.2a are performing. Now 75 isn't mastery, but in a school like mine, 75% is actually pretty darn good. But look at 3.3D, 46% are mastering 3.3D. So then I have to make a decision as a teacher. Was this a question problem or is it a content problem? So what's great about the system that we use, which I might argue that most campuses at this point, they have something after COVID, when everything went online, districts got really, really, really fancy. And if your district has nothing like this, please reach out to me. As a member of this course, you have access to me. as a coach. My email is teamhealthyroots@gmail.com. Please email me so we can discuss something that maybe we can even create so that this work is streamlined for you, because this is a game changer right here. Game changer. This takes what used to take me hours of data analysis and standard analysis now takes me minutes. Huge deal. So if you don't have anything like this, reach out. Let's make you something. Let's make you something. So 46%. I click on this question right here and it pulls up the question for me. Sometimes, let's be honest, the questions suck. Okay. Sometimes the questions suck. And I'm like, yeah, I can totally see why these kiddos got that wrong. So maybe it's actually not a 3.3D question or issue. Maybe it's a, hey, this is also how this can be asked, and I just didn't expose them to that. So then it goes into a reteach calendar. High priority standards are your underperforming, right? So for us, that's sitting around 62% or lower, classroom dependent. If I have a classroom of kiddos that are meeting or mastering grade level content, it's not going to, high priority SEs are not going to be a 62%. I'm coming from a lens of underperforming, low performing, at risk children. So for me, high priority is 62%. But if I am teaching at my daughter's school, high priority standards might be anything underneath 80%. It just kind of depends on your classroom specifically. And it might even be down from period to period. Your first block, your first period might be crazy high. And second period might be crazy low. So it might be just depend from that perspective. These are standards that are foundational or buildable. So for example, in a math elementary classroom, subtraction is something that they need to know, because if they cannot subtract, they can also not do division. If they cannot subtract, they can also not do estimation. If they cannot subtract, they're also going to have a hard time with divisibility and prime and composite numbers. And it's foundational, it's buildable. That's how I determine what is a high priority SE or standard. It is something that's either really low performing, something that stands out to me as a teacher, like that 44% accuracy. It's something that is foundational. If we don't get this, there's no way that they can get this, this, and this. So let's talk about moderate priority standards. Moderate priority standards for my classroom is a 63 to an 82% mastery standard. They're still important. They're still what we call readiness. Readiness is just a fancy way for highly tested or foundational, buildable, which means commonly tested, right? So these are my standards where they might be performing okay overall. I might have a small group of students that are not really meeting that expectation, but it's not necessarily a whole group reteach. It's not a, we have to do this, activity on this thing because we're all not getting it. This might be more of a small group situation. And low priority SEs are your mastered concepts, lightly tested and or isolated standard. Something that doesn't bridge to another concept. I'm a 5th grade math teacher, so I constantly think of this T called 5.3D, which is like literally it's a base 10 block and it's a decimal times a decimal. And it's like they have to visually be able to represent like 6/10 times 4/10. And it'll be 4 quadrants, it'll be 4 base 10s, flats, and they literally just have to know what it looks like. They actually don't even have to solve anything. That's a low priority SE. That's not something that builds on anything else, not even in middle school and or high school, because I think that's important too. Us people down in elementary, we can't forget that everything stacks up like staircases. So it's important to be able to look far ahead at your standards or have good communication with your whole vertical alignment team. I have great communication with my high school math teachers because they tell me, hey, this is where these kids are coming low in. And although it doesn't really hit them until 5, 6, 7 years down the line, it's going to hit them eventually. So I also think it's a little bit of a plug to create a community within your content from elementary all the way to high school. You really want to see a bridge? That's the way to do it. So low priority SEs are going to be those things that just are isolated, right? Or that I can layer teach, meaning I can hit addition when I also do perimeter. So perimeter or addition can actually go in the low priority SE, whereas perimeter might go in high priority SE because it takes more critical thinking to do so. So here comes the student-centered DDI form that we were talking about. As I'm filling out, let me take you back, as I'm filling out this guy and I'm meeting with students, we are filling out this together. So I'm telling them what is their goal, right? And like, once again, you have full editing access. The only thing that I ask is that you don't take my watermark out or my copyright out, but you have full editing access of this form. So you've got your name, or their name rather, you've got their goal, what they actually got. Is there a difference between the two? Are you in the positive or are you in the negative? Then I allow them to get into their body. I highly suggest that you listen to that conversation, that DDI, student-centered DDI conference that I had with that kiddo. There's a link in this module here. It's invaluable. It's invaluable information. I give them space, a safe space to get into their body about how they feel about this grade. And I ask them to start listing out the emotions that are coming up for them as we reflect on their goal versus their actual. This only works if you have high relational equity with your people. How do you build high relational equity with your people? Well, that's up there in the other modules, right? So if you came to this one because DDI is a district incentive or whatever that's being pushed for you, you got to go travel up into the mindset module and listen for what that sounds like, okay? Because that's a whole different training, really. It's a whole different block of effort and work. But in order for them to feel safe to give you their true emotions, you have to have high relational equity with them. Then I reflect on what did they do? What could they have done differently? Right? And sometimes this is really hard for kiddos, especially down in primary school, because it's really hard for them to think like, they think very literal. The test is over, period. Like, that's it. They can't, or rather they don't want to, or rather they're just not there yet prefrontal cortex wise to think beyond the moment that they're actually in. So asking them what they could have done differently really gets their brain thinking about how their actions affect their future, which is actually a skill that is not necessary just for academia, but for the benefit of their whole life. Then we go into their commitment bands. Are they willing to do anything extra? Are they willing to come to tutoring? And I give them free rein. I give them what do you feel like you can do right now? They sign it, I sign it, our administration signs it, and then the parents sign it. And this goes in their folder, their binder, their desk, sometimes the garbage, let's be real. And then simplicity is key. So we talked about it, right? For DDI to work, it has to be consistent and it has to be simple. This is the extent of one of my math data trackers. Like, this is literally it. Now, of course, I could have done cute borders and cute font and cute all the things and, cute ladybugs and rainbows and butterflies. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But for me, what's most effective is that they can see it clearly and that it clearly shows progress. That's it. So module 1. So we're broken up. Our math curriculum has mid checkpoints through every unit and end checkpoints of every unit. So you can see it's very clear. Module 1, mid, the date that we took it, the score is at the bottom, and then they simply shade up to their grade. That is it. Then we go to 2, then we go to end, then we go to 2, so on and so forth. And we do this with every mid and every end of module. What I love about that is that we're actually tracking at least once a month. At least once a month, we are tracking. Sometimes we're tracking twice a month. So this is something that they look forward to, or this is something that they know is going to happen no matter what. So that is it, believe it or not. That is the whole thing on DDI. Create simple documents. You have access to all of those in the text portion of this course. It's a Google Doc, so you just simply make a copy and edit it as needed. You have full permission to do it. The only thing that I ask is that you don't share it with other people. What you can share with other people is access to this course. I always keep this course no matter what happens. I will always keep it cost effective for teachers because I really do have a mission and a passion to creating a culture within the teaching community that we can be awesome teachers that really push our children academically while also radically self-loving, loving ourselves and loving our children. So it will always stay cost effective. So the only thing I ask is that if you have colleagues that are asking about what you're doing, because I know it's working, share this course with them instead of the content within this course that I worked hard to create. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll see you in the next module.